Welcome to Golf Smarter Mulligans number 52. I'm Fred Green. Terry Rowles is a PGA certified instructor and former apprentice to David Leadbetter. And he tried something unique in golf instruction. He opened a hitting bay teaching studio in the heart of the financial district in San Francisco, and it had all the bells and whistles. But it's strange when you walk into a large office building, get in the elevator, go up the number of floors, walk into a room, and it's a hitting bay. Now, I was introduced to Terry by a Golf Smarter listener who worked downtown and was blown away by how much he could learn from Terry without having to hit balls into anything other than a net. So for this episode, we'll travel to the heart of San Francisco and meet up with instructor Terry Rowles. Golf Smarter Mulligans is brought to you by TwoGuysWithGolfBalls.com, offering you phenomenal opportunities to save money when buying golf balls. I've told you about Two Guys with Golf Balls before. I hate buying golf balls because I just don't like spending that money. And even when someone gave me a gift of a box of balls for my birthday, I said, gee, thanks. You're giving me something you know I'm going to lose. Well, that's what it is about golf balls. You know you're going to lose them, so why pay premium prices when you can get premium quality at half the price? It's true. Most of the time, you're going to save half, maybe even more. And they have a great selection of balls, anything you want, from Titleist to Kirkland to Snell to Weiss, Callaway, you name it, they're probably going to have it. And they'll have a selection for you so you can pick from Eagle, Birdie, or par quality. Now, the Eagle quality ball is like a brand new ball that's just been hit once. There's not going to be any dents, dings, tree marks, scuff marks, none of that. That's the Eagle quality ball, and that is just like hitting a brand new ball. And don't forget, because you're a Golf Smarter listener, if you put Golf Smarter at checkout, you're going to save an additional 10% off every order, every time. That discount offer expires on April 1, 2020, so I'd highly advise you take advantage of it right now. Go to TwoGuysWithGolfBalls.com, TWO, TwoGuysWithGolfBalls.com. Welcome, Terry.
Thank you, Fred. It's been a pleasure having you here in the school.
Well, it's interesting because we've actually spent the last hour and 45 minutes talking before we even turn on the recorder. And we're in your golf center here. It's called the San Francisco Golf Performance Center. But you have something that I don't know how much competition you have. We're in downtown San Francisco. We're in the heart of the financial district. You probably have a couple hundred square feet.
Yeah,
you just have a small office space.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, you are right in the center of the financial district of San Francisco. How did you get the idea of putting a golf center, training center, right here in the middle of the city?
Well, actually, when I was living in London, there's a very famous golf school, actually underground in London, called Knightsbridge Golf Centre, and those guys were teaching very famous players, 50s, 60s, 70s, even now. Stephen Ames, for example, I met him down there. But also people like Hugh Grant, all the celebrities are going there. So I went there and had some lessons from those guys. And it actually surprised me how effectively I learned in that context. Because once you take the ball flight away from somebody, they have much more capacity to be aware of themselves whilst they're learning. And so I tried it out. So at my previous location when I was working in Europe, we had both. We had a driving range and also an indoor kind of swing studio. And I would spend a lot of time in the swing studio because the feedback systems that I have, with the 3D system and the video, gave the people who were taking the lessons much faster feedback and enabled them to improve themselves much more quickly. So it's been very successful.
Well, congratulations. Yeah. That's great. And I'm fascinated by the fact that you said that this was done years and years ago in England, but they didn't have the electronics that you have.
They didn't.
Up in
No,
here.
they
so
actually.
How could they get people to understand exactly what was going on with them?
Really, they were just doing a different type of teaching to what I'm doing here, but they would. Their main thing was the convenience. I mean, people were in downtown in London, let's say, in the centre of London, and it was very convenient to take a lesson. So their main thing that I got from them was the convenience. Nowadays they do use video, but in those days they were just I kind of taken the swing to pieces and doing kind of positional training, which is a little different to what I'm doing here. So I've just kind of updated the idea. Yeah.
So let's talk about what electronics that you have here and what you use and how you incorporate that into your lessons.
Obviously, I have a video system with multiple angles of video to give you the visual feedback. When I do an initial analysis like now, then I'm using predominantly the 3D system. So I strap you up in a vest and a belt and put a sensor on your glove to detect what your body and spine and hand are all doing in space in 3 dimensions.
Like how they create video games, this 3D system.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've ever seen it.
Yeah.
I was really impressed. And so you're wearing a belt.
Yeah.
You're wearing something on your hand.
Yeah.
And you're wearing over your shoulders.
Yeah, correct.
And what kind of feedback does that provide?
Well, the main thing
for you and the student?
Yeah. So the main thing, number one, that I'm looking for is the movement of your spine during the swing. So we have a sensor at the top of the spine and a sensor at the bottom of the spine, and that's telling me how well you're keeping your spine angle in 3 dimensions throughout the swinging movement. The way in which it helps the student is it gives you visual and also auditory feedback. We didn't do too much about it. There's a lot of exercise programs built into, or the drills built into the system, which give you feedback, immediate feedback, when you lose your position, and also gives you an idea of how to do the correct movement. What it does for me is it detects much more precisely than a camera would. So if you like, it's the MRI as opposed to an X-ray, and it's much quicker to diagnose. So the theory being, we're trying to, as if you can imagine spinning a weight around on a piece of string on your hand. It spins much more consistently around a fixed point than it does around a center that is moving, and the center is being your spine.
I love the example you gave me when we were talking earlier, and you just picked up a lanyard that had some keys at the end, and you spun it around, and it's not, now if you move your hand a lot, it's not going to spin. But
exactly.
If you're holding your hand still, and your wrist and your forearm, which is in essence your spine,
exactly,
what you're showing, and when you just spin that, things flying around.
So what are people looking for? They're looking for power and consistency. So if you can keep your spine angle relatively stable throughout the swing in 3 dimensions, then you're going to get more speed around the spine and also a much more consistent circle around your spine. And there's your speed and consistency.
What kind of resistance are you getting from students, the fact that you don't have ball flight, that you can't show what the ball flight is doing, how far it's going, what kind of power?
The feedback that I get from my students is based on the results that they have over a period of lessons. So what I do is the initial lesson structure is I only do a 6-lesson package.
So this isn't a stop in and give me a lesson and improve everything I'm doing.
No, the base of what I'm doing here is I'm improving fundamentals, and I want a certain level of commitment from my student because I give a lot to my students also. So they take a 6-lesson package over a 2-month period, and the drills that I give are basically to be done at home. So there's balance drills, there's kind of body rotation drills, setup drills, and through the people doing the drills at home for a short period of time, the results that they're getting on the course are surprisingly good. A traditional golf lesson is going to have you stand on the range, you watch the ball, the teacher generally is going to tell you to try something. If the ball flight doesn't change, that's pretty much the end of the experiment. What we're doing here is we're doing a lot of exercises, hopefully building up some repetition with the people doing the exercise at home. Their body becomes familiar with the change, and then they try it out on the golf course. And so it's a much deeper change that by the time the person gets to the golf course, they don't even have to think about the change. It's already been incorporated into their system because of the practice and the repetition they've been doing at home. So
you asked me a question while we were doing this that I don't know if I answered, but you haven't either. And you know where I'm going with this. How long does it take for it to sink in, for it to work when you're giving drills? You're not giving tips. You're giving drills. You're giving assignments.
What I generally do is I give a system of improvement. It's definitely not a tip. It's very precise instruction.
Based on the
it changes immediately. So your swing, your approach to the game has changed already. but it's a continuum. It's not a fixed point. Okay, how do I know when I'm better? We gradually improve every day. So every day you do the drill, you improve by an increment. Who knows how much the increment is? So each day you practice one of my drills, you're getting better. It's incremental, and it's a dynamic system. I mean, every game of golf we play is different, but what we're looking to do is have our improvement curve improving and going upwards all the time. My students are improving all the time because of the exercises they're doing are fundamental exercises. They're improving their approach to the game, their fundamentals. Who knows when we get to what we want to get to, because it's a very difficult thing to say, because we're changing all the time, and therefore our goals are always ahead of us. So it's kind of a funny question, but let's say your goal is to hit more fairways, for example. I want to hit 3 more fairways than I currently hit. Then within 2 or 3 lessons, you're going to be hitting more fairways. You're going to be hitting it straighter and more consistently based on the exercises that we have. But the better question, that's a little bit more general. Difficult one to answer.
You aren't just trying to figure out ball flight or grip, swing. You're incorporating so much more into it. And the fact that you require a minimum of 6 lessons, and it's not 6 lessons over a week. I mean,
no, it's about a 2-month period. Yeah.
And so you want to have a lesson, go home, work on this.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily, wintertime is a great time for you.
Perfect, yeah.
Because you don't necessarily want them to go out to the range. You don't want them going on the course.
I still encourage you to go to the range and go to the course, but regardless of whether you do or do not, the homework is the important part, is that you need to be doing the drills. I ask for a 3 to 5 minute investment from my students each day.
You can tell we are downtown. Here comes the fire engines now.
Yeah. And so the key is the consistency of practice. If you can practice every day for 2, 3, 5 minutes, then the improvement will come. If they go to the range and give me some feedback, that's great. If they play on the golf course, fantastic. But in order to make a lasting change, which is what we're talking about here, most people, they go to a lesson and they want to feel better right now.
Right.
But in order to have a difference in your score and a difference in the way in which you enjoy the game, there has to be some form of consistency of practice. If you're going to learn to run a marathon, and you say, well, I'm going to run a marathon in 2 months, and you run you run once today, and then maybe in 2 weeks you run another time, and then in 4 weeks another one. It really isn't going to change your body's response to running a marathon. It's the consistency of what we do. It's the same as most people's diets. They go on a diet for 3 days and wonder why it doesn't change as quickly as they want it to. It's what you do on a daily basis.
Yeah, and is that a problem that you see consistently, people wanting quick results in golf? And specifically, we're talking about golf here, that they're looking for a quick fix and quick results?
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, that's definitely something that we see. I mean, you see people buying new drivers, you see people buying new shoes which will improve their swing, and new balls, and taking 5 lessons a year from 5 different teachers, and in reality their game is staying the same. They're just
you mean to tell me that the new clubs won't improve my game?
Well, if over the last 10 years we improve our distance by how much the equipment companies really promise us, you imagine 20 yards a year would be about 200 yards longer this year, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, that's what it looks like it's happening on the tour.
Yeah, exactly.
They keep lengthening the holes.
So, I mean, equipment does have an effect. But
no question,
the biggest effect, in my opinion, is the Indian and not the arrow. I mean, if someone would improve their flexibility, for example, improve their ability to balance, then real changes we're talking about. I mean, how long does it take to stretch muscle? It takes a good few weeks for a muscle or joint to recover its range of motion, for example. Then people are really going to sense a difference if they can work on their own equipment as opposed to just buying the difference.
I don't want to reveal any information that you learned about me over the last couple hours, but can you be too flexible?
You can be, yeah. What we're looking for, each joint has a optimum range of motion. And being too flexible would mean that you get more injuries. So, let's say, for example, people are hypermobile, it's more likely to be females, and also more likely to be young females. If you take the ballistic, the high-speed golf swing, for example, and you swing a joint which is too flexible at great speed, then it'll pull it out of its position. It's called a luxation. So some people are over-flexible. So we want to assess the body, and this is what I do, is I measure each golfer's body to find out which muscles they have are tight and which ones are loose, in order to find out which ones they need to stretch specifically in order to improve their swing, or which ones, in your case, maybe which you need to strengthen. So it is very much an individualized program in terms of improving someone's posture. But yeah, you can be too flexible.
So it is very individualized. You don't do group lessons here. Obviously, you don't even have room for group lessons.
No.
But you bring people in on individual basis, and you work with them. You probably spend a lot more time talking to them than they're comfortable with. Coming in downtown at their lunch break, it's like, no, I got to have my lesson. I got to get out of here.
But
you need to learn a lot. You like to learn.
It's the way it works is I generally attract the people that are really, really keen to improve. So
it's important to you.
Yeah, and that's important to me, is that people who are really want to get better, I'm the man. People that just want to have a quick tip and a polish of the ego.
It's a little bit more. Fix it.
Yeah, fix it now. I can do that.
Okay.
But it's it's more organic, kind of holistic way of approaching the game, and looking for long-term, lasting change.
Well, right here on the whiteboard next to us, you have some things written down under Chain of Excellence.
Yeah.
I don't see golf written up there anywhere, but you're incorporating it.
A Chain of Excellence is more or less a roadmap for how a person can achieve better performance in whatever they do. It really is multidisciplinary, but the way in which I apply it to golf is such. If you want to improve your performance in golf, then the easiest way to do it is to improve your state. So your emotional state at any point in time could be happy, sad, frustrated, elated, whatever it might be. And each of those states has an effect on your golf. I mean, sometimes you play well for the front nine, and then you might eat a hot dog at the halfway at the clubhouse, and then get a little tired and irritable on the back nine, for example, and that might affect your golf. Or you might start off a little bit stressed out from the office, for example, and then relax throughout the round and play really well at the end. Or the pressure of the game might get you to a point where, you're free swinging at the start, you realize you're scoring really well, and then, you get tight and play badly at the end. So that in those cases, it's all a case of the state affecting your game. What I teach, though, is the way in which to change your state. So first of all, we started with golf performance. The thing that affects it is the state, but the thing that most affects your state is your physiology. So now, anybody who wants to understand this, just think about when they're really sad, they're kind of humped over and slouched, and your body reflects your state. So if you're slouched over, it's very difficult to be happy. If you're sitting up straight, it's also very difficult to be sad. And so the state that you're in is hardwired to your physiology. But the easiest point and the leverage point that we use to teach people quickly to improve their state on the golf course is breathing. And so if you can start breathing correctly through your diaphragm, through your stomach, as opposed to high breathing in your chest, automatically your body has to readjust itself to be in a good position, and that leads to you having better state. And so one of the keys to playing great golf, or to having a good meeting, or giving a good speech at a conference, is to ensure that you're breathing correctly from your diaphragm and not from your up in your chest. And like you say, that's pretty much.
I want to dig into that just a little bit, because are we talking about, again, over a 4.5, 5.5 hour round of golf, and the breathing? It's difficult to be conscious of your breathing the entire time.
It is.
So are we trying to just create a steady pace on that, or is it when we're getting into our shot mode?
No, that would be more, like you say, it's very difficult to do it consciously. This is part of the mental training part of the game, in the same way that we practice putting or chipping. Also, really good players have a mental practice that they do. The key is, what you want to happen when you play golf is that your state is presented to you automatically. In the same way that when you hear an old song, it reminds you of where you were at that particular time.
Or a smell.
Or a smell. The smell is actually the most direct one.
Oh, man.
actually, when we approach the ball, we don't want to be thinking about our breathing or anything else. But that's the way in which we become aware of whether we are, in the right place or not, is a change in our physiology, change in the breathing. So there's training that we do to teach people to have high-performance states automatically when they enter the golf course. And the breathing and the physiology training that we do is off the golf course. But the key, as I say, is called anchoring. And what we want to have is when we enter the course or enter the competition we want to do really well in, we want to be free of any conscious thoughts about what we're doing and how we're doing. We just want to be aware of the environment. So is the wind blowing? I need to aim my shot here. And the state needs to be presented to us as a result of good mental training.
This past week, I was up in the mountains. We were with some friends and woke up in the morning and went to a yoga class. And it was an hour and a half yoga class. It was great. And he said, the yoga instructor said something that to me it was like, wow, that's golf. It's like you nailed it. And because we're always talking about being in the present and not, worrying about the shot every time. And he said, when your mind, it's your physical is in the past and your mental is in the future. But the goal is to be in the present. And I thought, my God, that is so true on golf in the sense that, oh my gosh, every time I play this hole, I hit it in the water or I chunk it or, I never reach the green. So your physical's in the past and the mental being in the future is, I hope I, get par on this hole, and your mental part is there, but trying to eliminate those parts so you can just be in the present will increase and improve.
Correct. I mean, actually, one of the reasons why we have fear or anger or anything else is because we think the past equals the future. But there's a very famous philosopher, I forget his name right now, but what he says, we have room for 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information in our brain at any one time. When we're playing golf, I prefer my 7 chunks to be involved in working out where the wind is coming from, my yardage, where would I prefer to leave the ball, kind of the strategy of playing golf. That's where I prefer to be investing my mental energy, let's say. If, for example, I'm thinking about what happened last week or the week before or what could happen today or should my swing go to the inside or the outside, this is all taking up some of the room that I could be investing in playing the game. Now, most people forget why they play the game. I asked you the question when you came in, why do you play the game of golf? And most people will say something like to enjoy the game or, to have fun, but they end up working at it and becoming stressed out about it. So in that case, their state, when they're playing the game, encourages them to have these thoughts. Does that make sense? Now, if you're having fun, you don't worry. And so if you stick to your original policy of having fun to play the game, then the thoughts will diminish. And so if you can change your state in that context, then the game will become a lot easier. So the thoughts are a product of the state. Does that make sense? So if you can be a lot freer, for example, playing the game for fun, it changes a lot of those things. So there's a lot of what I do is helping people to recognize you're not trying to change bad thoughts for good thoughts, because they're all thoughts and they're all taking up room in your brain. Really, you're trying to take yourself into a different state where you're really not thinking that much. The product of the state is a much freer and more enjoyable way of playing golf, which is very, very good for lowering your score.
Bing. Bing. It's like blah, blah, blah. Lowering your score. Blah, blah. Have more fun. It's like talking to kids. I want to go back, if we can, for just a moment.
Yeah.
You talked about Paul
Check. Yeah.
Paul Check. And you spoke of another...
John Grinder.
John Grinder.
Yeah.
Do they have books that we can look up?
Paul Check has an excellent couple of books that you can look at, actually. One is Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. This is talking about nutrition and exercise and how you can customize it for yourself in order to become a more effective golfer or human being. One of the things we do is measure people's nutrition, and so one of the keys, again, to thinking well is to keep your blood sugar under control during the round of golf, for example.
Right.
The second book, which is excellent, which is very, very good for anybody who's interested in improving their flexibility and improving their physical side of the game. It's called the Golf Biomechanics Manual. It's a lot more expensive. It's like $75 to $100. I can't remember exactly, but it's
the
worth
Golf
it.
Biomechanics
Manual.
Yeah. And is that also by Paul Shack?
It is, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll just since we've talked about them, we'll make sure that we put them on our website.
Yeah.
At the Smarter Shopping area of Golf Smarter podcast. So if anybody's interested, they can just go out and buy it right from the website.
Very easy.
So let's get a little bit of background of who you are and how you got to this point, and decided that you wanted to teach in a little space on a street corner in downtown San Francisco. What's your history?
Well, I come from England, Cornwall,
really?
southwest England, and I was playing a lot of golf when I was a youngster, and did reasonably well in the local area, and then decided to become a professional and played professionally for a few years. At the same time, I was teaching and trying to do everything at the same time. At that point, I got a very interesting offer to work for David Leadbetter, which was, being the learning freak that I am, I really was excited about, and was a great few years of my life. I worked for David for 5 or 6 years, through which time, I learned from him and his group of great teachers. And in the end, I was director of one of his biggest academy in Europe, and I was teaching the teachers myself. So at that point, I left there and went out on my own. I was doing teaching in a private club, but also doing a lot of kind of clinics and teaching companies, which I still do, by the way. A lot of the bigger banks like to do days with their clients. So, private banking. So we do Credit Suisse, Deutsche Bank, UBS, and we do client appreciation days. So that's one of the things I also do. At that point, I was continuing to learn. I was realizing that just changing swing technique is not the only way that people can improve. Like I say, if someone has no flexibility in their spine, for example, there's no point in me telling them to turn their body, turn, because they just can't do it. Right. So I need to educate the person how to do it. So I went to Paul Check because he's one of the best in teaching stretching and strengthening. So I now had the ability not only to teach well through my time with Leadbetter, but I could also teach, the high handicappers, the stiffer people who wanted to enjoy the game, to stretch, to enable them to make the swing that David Leadbetter would have wanted them to do. After that, then I realized that, some people approach the game in a successful manner. They enjoy the game, and that enables them to play with a free mind and get the most out of the game. Some people are very driven but still enjoy the game, so they're maybe a little bit more ambitious. They could even get the most out of the game. But some people, like you say, they're criticizing themselves the whole time. They're wondering whether the shot's going to go left or right. There's no down the middle. And they're giving themselves a hard time, which makes the game very difficult to play. So I then learned a lot about how to assess and help people to enjoy the game more and to get themselves in a better place to play the game. And that kind of trio of skills is what I do. And like I said to you earlier, if I have someone come in and watch me teach 10 lessons, in one lesson they think I'm a mental coach, the next one they think I'm a physiotherapist, the next one a swing technician, and the next one, is a mixture of all three. And so, during a series of lessons, we're going to work on a whole series of issues in order to get the most out of each golfer that comes in for a lesson. So
it's not about you; it's about them.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
And so often we hear about people needing advice on equipment and buying stuff, but and getting fitted for clubs, which is important. But if you're going to be investing the kind of money that it takes, you might really want to look into lessons, huh?
Yeah, I agree.
I would think that you would, and unfortunately, you're not all over the place, and you're not traveling around the world giving lessons. You are here based in San Francisco, and it's only unfortunate for the people who aren't in San Francisco. Yeah. But if you are in San Francisco, and the way I found you is, the way I found you is one of the Golf Smarter listeners sent me his video that you sent him and said, you got to talk to Terry. You're not gonna, he's a different breed of teacher and really can be quite helpful.
Yeah, so I'm really looking for students who really have tried the new clubs, who've tried the quick fix, and they've tried the different teachers, and are really looking for a path in which they can really learn how to improve their game on a steady, long-term basis in terms of really making lasting change. And like I say, I stand by my commitment to guarantee that there will be a measurable difference, before and after difference, after 6 lessons, that people can really measure the difference in their game in terms of more fairways or more greens or just a lower score.
Well, just in the time that you and I spent together, I'm going to walk away with some things that are going to definitely have an impact on my next round of golf.
Good.
At the very least.
Good.
But before we go, I want to ask you, because you've worked with Leadbetter and you've been around the world playing golf, doing different things. This is a question that I like to ask because we get such varied answers. But as a golfer, what's the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice I ever received
as a golfer.
Wow, that's a good one. Okay. The piece of advice that most helped me was when I was trying to make it as a pro and I stopped enjoying the game and I was trying to force myself to practice more and play more, but I was kind of split in two at that point, was just someone who said, remember why you play the game. So ask me the question, why do you play the game? Because it does something for you. It's like when you say to someone, why do you buy a Ferrari, for example? It's not just to have a piece of red metal sitting in the drive. It's really because it makes you feel a certain way. It's different for different people. But for me, I enjoyed competing and playing the game, and as I was playing badly for a phase of time, then I really had forgotten that part, and so that really rejuvenated me and got me playing better and enjoying the game and making it a game of a lifetime again for me. Interesting.
Did that epiphany for you enable you to play better and continue playing on that level, or did you just say, you know what, I can't? This is too much pressure. This touring and playing competitively, I'm losing the fun part of it.
No, I'd already pretty much stopped playing competitively at that time. I was already coaching, but whilst I was coaching, I was not enjoying playing all that much. So what it has done is it's given me kind of a second wind, and now I feel I can coach at a much higher level because I'm equally as enthusiastic as my students again, which has been great. And this has been great. Thank you very much. I really appreciate all the time that you've given me today. My pleasure.
It's been a fascinating conversation talking to you, and I wish you the best of luck here at the San Francisco Golf Performance Center, right
Thank you.
In the heart of the financial district of one of the greatest places in the world.
That's for sure.